Thanks so much, April. So I always imagined the first time I got on stage at Cliff Bell's with a microphone, it would be to launch my hip-hop career. We're not going to do that tonight. That's your loss. This will feel pretty close, though, I think, to a hip-hop show or something like that. It's going to be fun. As April said, my name is Garret Koehler. I am not a professional panel moderator. I run an organization called Assemble. Assemble is simply an organization. It's a brand that convenes people around a really simple question. It's a group of us who saw sort of this need to convene people around the question, what are we actually trying to build together in Detroit? It's for the people on the ground in Detroit doing work, we're not as concerned anymore with what the rest of the country thinks about what's happening here. We know that there's this thing that we're all calling revitalization. The more pertinent question is, what does this revitalization look like? Who's involved? Who has a voice at the table and as part of the decision-making process? So Assemble really just convenes people around that question using music and skateboarding and a lot of other random stuff, sometimes panel discussions. So just a little bit about myself outside of Assemble. I moved to Detroit 2 years ago, almost now. I'm like an adopted son is what, I can't say I'm a Detroiter, they've told me not yet. But I'm working at it, and so I moved here to work on a bid to bring the X Games here. That's sort of what Assemble came out of. Oh, that person didn't hear that we lost. And it's funny because I did that, and that was full time for about a year, a little over a year, and then we launched this Assemble thing, and it sort of started off as it was going to be this big festival, and we failed to raise the money that we needed to do that, so we had to sort of shift gears and just start activating around what we felt compelled by, which was the question I talked about earlier. And I think a lot of you probably do this as entrepreneurs or aspiring business owners, whatever the titles are that we're using, is a lot of times you just got to stop and audit like the last 6 months or year work that you've done. And really look at sort of successes and failures and figure out what the symptoms of success are and the symptoms of failure. And I've felt myself doing that a lot lately. And as we talked about putting together this panel that was all about collaboration and the role of collaboration in building a business, I sort of looked at my 2 years of work, and it was interesting to me because I realized that there has been some successes, there's been some failures, and I think the biggest symptom of success when I look at my work has been the times where I was being the most collaborative. And on the contrary, the failures have been the times where I've sort of isolated myself and thought that I could do things on my own. So not only that, but in terms of personal satisfaction, not only has my work been most effective, but it's also been most satisfying when I've been working with other people. I think in some sense it's almost better to fail with others than it is to succeed by yourself. And I think that, so personally this is a really relevant question and a question that I want to ground a lot of my work in. And I only share that with you because I think it might help you think about the role of collaboration in your work. But I think in terms of Detroit on a macro level, we're in a really interesting place. I moved here because growing up in Chicago, doing work in Chicago, I started coming to Detroit. And when I go back to Chicago, a lot of my friends graduated from college, trying to figure out their lives, and they were just sort of floating, felt very transient, not really connected or purposeful. And I said, there's this, when I'd go back and I'd be like, there's this amazing, really palpable sense of intentional community in Detroit. And it's like, it doesn't matter what you're doing. People from all walks of life are helping you realize sort of your goals here. And that's, I think, a really powerful and convicting thing for people. And I think as the city grows, one of the risks that we have is losing sort of that collaborative communal spirit to the emergence of a more competitive market environment. And I think that one of the big sort of macro questions that I want to underlie a more personal conversation tonight is what is the role of collaboration and cooperation in sort of Detroit's changing market, one that's going to, I think, start to get a little bit more competitive. And if we want there to be a role for collaboration and cooperation, we're going to actively need to figure out that role, to put mechanisms in place that ensure that it remains. So that's just an ongoing conversation that I hope we'll have tonight, and hopefully we'll have going forward. So without further ado, I'm gonna introduce the panelists here. Again, I've never moderated a panel before, so guys, this is what I'm gonna keep this super casual. I'm gonna sit down if I can move this stuff around, and one of my fears is that sometimes I ask really personal questions, and so if I ask something that's too personal, we're gonna have a code word, and the code word is Garrett, that was too personal. Or if I ask something that is a secret to your business, you can say, Garrett, that's a secret to my business, and I'll retract the question. I saw the list of panelists, and this is before Jessica asked me to be a moderator. She didn't actually ask me, I asked her, because I looked at the list, and Sebastian I know personally, but I didn't know anyone else on this panel tonight, and I said, hey, I think I could be a really good moderator because I don't know any of these people, and their work looks super interesting. So I can just sit on stage and ask some questions all night. That sounds awesome. So that's what I really want to do. We have Sebastian Jackson from the Social Club over at Wayne State. I'm going to have you guys describe your own businesses. I'm not going to put words in your mouth. We've got Mandisa Smith from Detroit Fiberworks. We have Ebony Rutherford from Trish's Garage. And we've got Herman Jenkins, who represents an art collective called The Collective. So I think we're going to keep this first question super easy. Who are you? And I don't want to hear your story yet. I just want to hear about your business. Just describe sort of your work, what your business is, what you do maybe on sort of a daily basis. Yeah, we'll start with Sebastian, go down the line before I start jumping around.
My name is Sebastian Jackson. I'm the founder of the Social Club Grooming Company. The Social Club is a barbershop located on Wayne State's campus. It's a barbershop that creates community impact and impact on the natural environment. We've been in business for about 2 years now, 2.5 years now. We're growing. Collaboration is a huge part of our business, and we're looking to design and execute the best barbershop that exists in this city, in the region, and in the country eventually.
Hi, my name is Mandisa Smith. I am co-owner of Detroit Fiberworks along with Najma Wilson, who's not here this evening. We are both fiber artists, thus Detroit Fiberworks, but that is not all that we do. I, by profession, am a felter. I make garments, home accessories, wearable things, and she does stitchery, dyeing, painting on fabric, those kinds of things. So at Detroit Fiberworks, we show and sell our own work as well as the work of other Detroit artists. We have a gallery space, so we have work on the walls that changes every month. We sell the work of other artists on consignment in our store, and we also teach fiber art techniques in sort of a fun atmosphere, short 3-hour workshops, small takeaway things that are beautiful. And we also, in addition to focusing on art, we also do some community outreach. And for example, this year we had a discussion around the anniversary of South Africa's first democratic election. Now in our space we have a piece by our featured artist, which is a huge 10 by 10 piece that lists the name of every person who was lynched from 1865 to 1965. And that seems like a really heavy subject to have in our space, but we decided that it was something that was necessary. We think it's really important that we all know our history. So it's not just about art, it's about culture. And I think that might give you a snapshot of who we are. Thank you.
Hi guys, so I'm Ebony, the owner, founder, maker, baker, drum maker, and your master styling mechanic of Trish's Garage. Our first focus is focusing on you, and our second focus is really making sure that you feel comfortable in your own skin, and the clothes are just the accent piece. We love having conversations and making connections, whether it be personally or professionally, and we really hope to give your style and your business a tune-up.
My name is Herman Jenkins. I'm actually a filmmaker and producer-director at Fly Show Films. I do a lot for corporate and creative clients. Some of my clients included the Detroit Tigers, University of Detroit Mercy, Titan Athletic Department, project producers, which manages Motown recording artist Kim, and Chemistry Records artist El Renee. And I'm also part owner of The Collective, which is why I'm here today. It's a business incubator and co-working space located in Indian Village in a repurposed 1901 Tudor mansion. My business partner is here with me today, the fabulous Barbara Winder. Will you stand, Barbara, please, so we can recognize you? Yes, thank you very much. Yes. We're home to artists and arts entrepreneurs. A couple of our tenants include Artrageous Gallery, Brenda Stroud Studio, Steph and Ty. That's just her workshop, her manufacturing space. She actually has a retail space on Iron Street. For those of you who are familiar with Steph and Ty, she makes hats out of repurposed fabrics and materials. Deb Style is one of our tenants. She's a seamstress. She does custom apparel and garments. She does short runs for local designers as well. We're home to U.S. African Imports, which imports unique artifacts straight from the mother continent, primarily West Africa. And then we have Great Estates Resale Shop, which is a unique resale shop that we have in our building. I love going in there, getting shoes and suits and all this stuff. It's like one guy who comes in who has suits that like fit me, so I tell Gloria to put those things aside for me. And then we're home to the Gathering Art Space and Cafe, which I'm also a partner in. It's a pop-up restaurant and art space that serves brunch on Sundays and does live music on Friday evenings. So I'm delighted to be here and look forward to building with all of you.
Thanks. So I want everyone here just to get a better idea of the people behind those businesses. So I think this is probably a bit of a longer answer and hopefully a bit more personal. I just want to know sort of where you guys were at before you opened your respective businesses, and maybe don't start at birth, but start at sort of like a relevant point in your life, or sort of where you made the transition to.
Yes, I won't start at birth, but I'll start close to birth when I realized that I could make things happen versus things happening to me, and I think that's what gave me kind of the confidence to start pursuing entrepreneurship. So my mom is mentally ill, and I lived in Flint. I grew up in Flint. I was born in Flint, and my mom couldn't really provide for us how she wanted to because of her illness. So living in Flint, we were very poor. Living in Kalamazoo, we were middle class, and I saw both sides of that track. So I would take the things that my family in Kalamazoo would buy me, and I would sell those things in Flint. And so I realized, that my brother and I could feed ourselves, we could make our own money, we could do these types of things to survive. Later on in life, I realized that business was about solving a problem, so I started to identify things that I was passionate about, problems that I was passionate about solving, and I use my limited skills to help solve those problems. So I would identify, the urban tree canopy declining in Detroit. I can cut hair. Let's figure out how to merge these two things to how can I use cutting hair to solve this problem? And that's where creativity kind of existed, where I had to figure out how to take this very practical craft and turn it into something that could solve a problem. But the idea of entrepreneurship for me started with getting rid of things that I didn't think that I needed in order to survive in this very desolate environment with very limited resources. So that's kind of my backstory on how I became an entrepreneur.
When did you start cutting hair though? When did it go?
I started cutting hair at 15 years old. We were taken away from our mom, and we lived in Kalamazoo, and I started cutting hair in the garage. I started cutting my brother's hair first. Well, actually, I started cutting my hair first. I cut my hair the first time, and it was a great haircut. The second time was a terrible haircut. But the first haircut gave me the confidence to continue to try to do it, right? So I said, if I did this the first time, what did I do in being successful, right? And then I got a little too confident, tried to do different things, and it didn't work out so well. So started cutting hair at 15. Maybe 5 years later, in school, started to do it professionally in a shop, and fell in love with the craft.
And when did you decide to open your own place?
In 2010, I had the idea of starting something called New Look Detroit. The idea was to cut individuals' hair that were on Section 8, right? So I volunteered over Thanksgiving cutting hundreds of kids' hair for free. And I saw families coming here with, 5, 6, 7 kids, and it reminded me of my mom and my brother and I growing up. And I said, these kids, want to look good because they want to feel good. And I think that looking good leads to feeling good, leads to doing good. And so I decided to start a nonprofit called New Look Detroit. And in 2010 is when I pursued, this endeavor. And it was declined a few times by Wayne State, and then finally approved as the social club. But it changed a bit in actually being able to get it open. Yeah.
We'll come back to those changes for sure, because I want to hear about them, but I want to hear about Mandisa's story.
Okay, so I won't start at birth either, but I will start when I was young. I've always been an artist. My father was amazing. He could do anything. He was a tailor, he painted, he carved furniture. He just did everything. Photographer, he had a dark room in the basement, and so I feel that I got some of that from him in terms of my creativity. But as a young African-American child growing up in the 60s, it was never presented to me that I could actually be an artist. The expectation was that I would go to college and get a degree and have a job doing something that was not creative, and that's exactly what I did. I got an undergrad degree in business, I got an MBA from Michigan, and I got a job in corporate America that I hated every single day. And I worked that job for a long, long time. I got married, I had a family, I had responsibilities, and that job handled my business, it helped me do all the things that I needed to do. But fortunately, one day in the, I think maybe it was, I can't remember, I've lost track, but I think it might have been around 2001. No, maybe it was 2010. I don't know when it was. Whenever it was, I got laid off, and I was so happy. Just like, thank you, thank you, thank you. So I kind of wondered, I knew that I was an artist, and I all along I had been creating. I was a jewelry designer. My work was wonderful. People loved it. But I couldn't figure out how to actually have my business. Even with an MBA, I couldn't figure it out. And then last year, miracles happened. And it's so weird because it all happened because my sister-in-law came to visit from California. She used to live in Detroit. She was very curious about what was going on here. She went to Eastern Market one Saturday and she saw the Detroit Future City office. She walked in and they had something about Light Up Livernois. And she brought it home and it said, you know, Light Up Livernois, come, if you'd like to participate, call us. Well, I grew up just a few blocks from Livernois, and I have lived in another house a few blocks from Livernois for the last almost 30 years. So I called and they welcomed my participation. It was sort of a weekend celebration of the Avenue of Fashion, which I don't know how many of you are actually from Detroit or know anything about the Avenue of Fashion, but the Avenue of Fashion was a premier shopping destination in the city of Detroit. It was like our Rodeo Drive. It was fabulous. Anything that you wanted, couture dresses, menswear, children's wear, pianos, jewelry, anything that you wanted that was fabulous and fine could be found on the Avenue of Fashion. Unfortunately, after the riots, everything changed. The Avenue of Fashion was no longer fashionable, and the Detroit Economic Growth Corporation, through Revolve, spearheaded an effort to revitalize the Avenue, and that's how we ended up on the Avenue of Fashion. So I don't know if I answered your question, because I just went way off, but.
No, you definitely did. I'm going to come back to you with a question about Livernois and the Revolve project.
All right, cool.
But first, let's hear from Ebony.
Awesome. Well, I actually didn't know I wanted to be an entrepreneur. My whole life I was taught to go to school, get a good paying job, and have a family. So my sister and I decided to start a business in 2007 because we had a love for T-shirts. So we were serial killers doing pop-ups everywhere, every college circuit. That's where we did. And our pop-ups some were good and some were extremely failures. And those failures helped to kind of hone into what our customers wanted and what our customers needed. Now at this time, again, I'm still treating the business as a hobby. So I was working for an executive position, and I needed to dress appropriately because I represent the business and I will, as well as represent myself. And I was dressed inappropriately. I had on a really short skirt, wrinkled clothes, because I didn't know how to dress. And that experience really kind of filtered Trish's Garage on really helping with personal styling on a budget. I spent over $500, and I think I wore the same suit 3 times. And they're like, okay, you need to get better clothing. And I'm like, I don't know how to do it. So that kind of filtered Trish's Garage in the sense of I had low self-esteem. I didn't know how to dress. I didn't know where to go to. My mom only knew certain things, but ultimately, you know, I had to represent myself in a very good manner because your first impression really is your last impression. And because of that, that's where we filtered Trish's Garage on the working from the inside out. A lot of times, you say one thing, but your appearance is another, and that ultimately helped drive collaborations and help drive customers to our store because we really understood what was going on. And because of those failures, we were really able to say, okay, listen, I know how you feel. And those brought about friendships. So the pop-ups, failure, and really not knowing where to go, and then listening to my customers really helped drive Trish's Garage where it is now.
Well, for me, you know, I guess I'm like Trish, kind of backed into entrepreneurship. Sport actually was a key underpinning of my development. I played basketball at the University of Detroit Mercy. Go Titans. And I ended up working for the Detroit Tigers in their front office in strategic planning and supplier diversity. Helped build Comerica Park. It was an unbelievable experience. And I also was teaching in Wayne State's graduate sports administration program. And, you know, I had entrepreneurial aspirations, I guess, as things moved along in my career in sport management. And I just decided to, you know, take a leap off of the branch and, you know, pursue my passion for film and video. Taught myself some new skills and quit. In about 3 years, 3 years ago, I was shooting a pilot project with a childhood friend of mine who's actually the chef at our restaurant now, called the Ghetto Gourmet, where friends would surprise friends with a culinary treat, and chef would like show up there and cook it right on site, and it was really cool. And you know, we were pitching it and selling ads for the webcast show, but the vision was ultimately to have a brick and mortar space for chef to actually, you know, serve up his dishes. And I ran into Barbara actually at an Indian Village event, and she mentioned to me that she had a space, you know, at what is now the Collective. It was always the Collective, but it didn't have me. So she says, you know, you should think about, you know, coming over here. You know, she was there with her sister, Garret Koehler, and they were managing White Glove Professional Cleaning, which did amazing service in the city for many, many years. And she said, you should think about, you know, doing it in this space, and, you know, you could do brunch on Sundays, whatever. So we went in and we took a look at this house, and it reminded me of, like, you know, Edmund's Place, and it was really, really cool. And I said, you know, this might work. And quite honestly, you know, the rest is history. You know, we joined forces, and an opportunity came for us to purchase and acquire the building. And, you know, we're just delighted to have that opportunity and move forward. But you can see that the collaboration is definitely a critical and central part of what we're doing at the Collective.
I want to talk not about the role so much of collaboration after opening the business, but more about what role collaboration played for each of you in getting your business open. And I want to, let's think about collaboration in like the broadest sense. So this could be just like people who are mentors. Ebony, I know that you were in the Build program, so maybe actually we could start with you if you don't mind, and you can talk about the Build program. And
No worries. For me, the collaborative is really about fostering your strengths and recognizing your weaknesses. For a long time, I thought I could do all things. I was a one-woman band, but ultimately that didn't help the business, and it didn't help me personally or professionally. And having that collaborative effort is about constructive criticism, and that criticism sometimes you need so that you can look yourself in the mirror and see what your strengths are with your business and what your weaknesses are so that you can develop them. Also, I think that with collaborative effort, it's about saying, hey, I know I'm weak in this area, but this person or this group may either be able to help develop that, or, hey, would you like a job under Trish's Garage? So for me, the biggest benefit of collaborative effort is masterminds. It's bouncing ideas off of people that have the same purpose. Number one, bringing Detroit and making Detroit a better place, and then number two, building a business in the city of Detroit. And having that collaborative effort is not necessarily about taking ideas, it's about making creatively impactful ideas.
I want to stick with this idea because I haven't really thought about collaboration in this sense. Most of the time, I think when we talk about collaboration, it's like, oh, we're working with people because we feed off like those creative collisions. I think is like a sexy word, your term they're using now. But I like this idea that collaboration's about exposing your own weaknesses and your own strengths, or discovering your own strengths. Mandisa, I went up actually and visited Detroit Fiberworks because I hadn't even heard of it, and wanted to go check out Livernois, spend more time up there. So I went up last week and spent some time with Mandisa. When I was leaving, I asked you a little bit about Revolve, and one of the things that you said really stuck with me. You said, you know, you couldn't really put into concrete terms what Revolve did for you, but you said, I know now that I wasn't ready to open up a brick and mortar business before Revolve. Right. You know, and so I guess in the context of like, I'm thinking about, you know, you had what, 20 plus years of corporate experience. For me, it's like, oh, you went from, you know, you had an MBA at Michigan, had all this corporate experience. Opening up a brick and mortar business seems like an easy little thing to do. What was it about sort of the Revolve experience I guess maybe it's a personal question, but what did that sort of expose in terms of what you needed to know, what you weren't ready for? Yeah.
Well, okay, I'm going to correct you
Oh,
because that's not exactly what I said. What I said was that I know that were there not Revolve, there would be no Detroit Fiberworks. Because, not so much because I wasn't ready to open a business. Honestly, to tell you the truth, I still don't know if I'm ready. You know, I don't know if you're ever ready. You know, you just get in there and you do what you have to do when you have to do it. But what Revolve did for us was it created the opportunity, you know, that we wouldn't have had otherwise. And in terms of, you know, I mean, when you open a business, I think I should back up and say that when we made our proposal to Revolve, it wasn't what we ended up being. When we made our proposal was for a fiber arts cooperative, which is a completely different model from what we are now. A cooperative is a space where you have multiple people who are all sharing the responsibility of running the business and the responsibility of financing the business together. And I had belonged to an artist cooperative before, Lawrence Street Gallery, which is in Ferndale, and it was a great experience for me. You know, it gave me the opportunity to show my work, to sell my work, to see what it was like to actually run a business without having all the responsibility on me. And I thought that would be a great model. And what I didn't realize when I made that proposal was that there's no way to create that in a matter of months, you know, finding enough people who are interested in doing the same thing that you're interested in doing, finding enough people who actually have the faith that this thing could work, you know, finding enough people who want to put their money and their time where their mouth is not that easy. So that was one of the weaknesses that I discovered in myself, was that I was really naive and unrealistic about how I could make this thing work. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
Okay, good.
I want to talk about this sort of cooperative model in the context of the collective, actually. Herman, is the collective structured as an artist cooperative, or is it more of just an artist community? And I guess what's the, how do the artists or the different residents in the collective work together? Is it like a formal, we finance this together?
Yeah, there's much discussion now about, you know, the differences between a co-working space and a business incubator. I like to think of us as being both. You know, the artists who are in our building, their business revolves around art, but they're self-contained entities. Brenda Stroud has her own studio. She does mixed media. She does workshops and art classes on the weekends. Outrageous Gallery, which actually was displaced from the Dime building downtown when Dan Gilbert purchased it. So we're delighted to have her, but the same. You know, she does work with fibers and all types of fabrics, very similar to what you're doing, Mandisa, and does artist receptions for local emerging artists in the city. So all of the businesses, you know, at the collective are pretty much self-contained operations, but we share, you know, all the resources within the building and space, and collaborate on events, you know, to promote what's happening in the collective, so that, you know, everyone can get the best bang for their buck. You know, without us providing, we believe anyway, you know, this space at, you know, an affordable rate. You know, many of the businesses in the building may not even be in business. So, you know, it's very important to us to be able to offer space for aspiring entrepreneurs at, you know, a cost that they can afford.
Cool. Sebastian, did you want to talk? I have another question for you, but I didn't know if you want to talk a little bit about the role collaboration played in opening up the social club, or?
Yeah, so collaboration is, like I said, everything for us, right? We've got kind of two customers. One, the barbers and stylists, and then two, the actual paying customers that pay for their services. So I think collaboration is the action of working with someone to create something. I'm working with my employees, and they believe that we're creating something that is going to have impact, unlike any other barbershop that they've ever seen. And I think collaboration is also adding value to each other. So one party is adding value to another party and vice versa, you know what I mean? So I think it comes down to adding value.
Yeah, and I think in some sense with the social club, correct me if I'm wrong, I see you guys as sort of promoting a more holistic lifestyle. It's not just about like you're coming in here to get a haircut.
Right.
So for you, like the collaborations, whether it's like other products or brands you're gonna work with, I imagine one thing that's pretty sensitive, and I think this probably applies to all of you, and I'd like to hear about this in the context of each of your businesses, but collaboration could be like, open your doors, I'll work with anybody. But if you do a collaboration that undermines the integrity or the quality of your brand, you know, that's dangerous. So how do you go about choosing who to collaborate with, or saying no? Maybe that's an interesting question. How do you say no?
Yeah, so that's probably one of the most important parts of business is saying no, right? So we're working on 3 things right now. 1 is creating awareness about our brand. 2 is identifying, hiring, and developing talent, and then raising money to grow our business. Raising money to support the first 2, creating awareness about the brand and hiring, developing talent. So if anybody approaches us and it doesn't fit into one of those categories, the answer is no, period. Now, if anybody approaches us and I feel like they don't understand what we're looking to build, and they are trying to help us create awareness, or they are trying to help us develop talent, or they are trying to help us raise money, if it's the wrong type of money, if it's the wrong talent, or if it's the wrong type of awareness, the answer is also no. So I think it's very important to understand the concept, right? Understand your business, what value you want to add, and if anybody else is trying to offer value that isn't the type of value you want to add, the answer should be no.
Ebony, can you talk a little bit about who you
I was just going to say, he hit it on the nose. Being on the pilot program, our biggest thing was collaborations with other local artisans. We want to develop and showcase local artisans that are in the city of Detroit that are making an impact in the city, making an impact in their business, and again in the world. So for me, the answer no was again about being the brand, and our brand is about working from the inside out. It's thinking team instead of thinking I. It's talking about us instead of just me. And for Trish's Garage, our biggest thing is that, I mean, almost every day when we were on the pilot program, people would come into the store and want to put items in the store. And the first thing that I would ask them is, how do you promote? And they looked at me like, I just want to put stuff in your store. Well, Trish's Garage promotes friendship. Trish's Garage promotes working from the inside out and being proud of who you are. And are you proud of who you are, and does your product say that same thing? So it was a lot of times we were saying no, like, it's a great product, and I think that you're going to do it extremely well. And hey, here are some resources for you to make your product be successful. But if you want to be part of Team Trish, then you have to have those same values. And I think ultimately, just like Sebastian said, if you're not trying to build as far as a collective of being personable, being about yourself, and being true to yourself, then it doesn't fit under the umbrella. So then that's where the no comes in.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Mandisa, Herman, do you guys have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I could add something to that. You know, it was interesting, you know, how things, you know, evolved for us when I started to get involved with the collective, you know, because it seemed like under some circumstances, you know, we were being ignored. You know, there were businesses, you know, opening on Agnes Street, which is another business district. It's kind of nestled, you know, more so in the village as opposed to us being right on Jefferson. But it seemed like, you know, there was a great deal of attention, you know, being focused on what was happening, you know, on Agnes Street. And there was literally, you know, they were ignoring, you know, businesses that had already been established, you know, on Jefferson Avenue. So, you know, we really weren't looking to say no to anyone. You know, we were raising our hand like, hey, we just wanted to say something, you know, like give us some attention, give us some help, give us some resources. You know, and much of this resistance actually came from the local CDC, you know, from the village's CDC. And we don't know if it was a situation where did we need to prove ourselves, you know, in order to, you know, be worthy of the assistance that they could provide to us. But what we do know is in the last, 12 months, based on some of the programs that, we developed on our own and collaborations that we initiated on our own, raising our hand, saying, hey, we are here. We reached out to the Detroit Design Festival in 2013, got them involved in doing sort of a pilot or an extension of the festival in the villages. And then this year, actually, it sort of just blew up to encompass the entire villages and not just, our space. The same thing happened with the Grand Prix, this year. We reached out to them and were able to have, a little pit stop party and, did a pop-up, with the Grand Prix show car in front of our building. But that was us reaching out to them saying, we want to be a hub for arts and culture and rich experience, in the villages. How can we work with you in order to make that happen? And it seems as if, once the villages, and others in the area began to recognize, like, maybe these guys are serious. Maybe they will be here, for, the long haul, and let's collaborate with them to, to make things happen. And they begin to pick up on other things that we've done. They've taken what we developed for Detroit Designs Festival, and they saw how it impacted the other businesses in the villages, Sister Pie and Parker Street Market, that have all opened up. And now they're looking at doing more days, festival-type days, built around marketing and promoting those businesses in the villages, whether it's a Thanksgiving fall festival or holiday, festival, so that, we can all work together to enhance our collective missions.
I want to talk a little bit about, you guys each have businesses in really different locations, and some of you not in locations yet. Before I do, though, there's sheets on the tables. We are taking questions right now, and I'm gonna, there's someone going around and we'll collect those questions. Muna is, and she's gonna bring them to me, and I'll ask your questions. Or if they're bad, I'll stare at them and ask my own questions and pretend I'm reading them. I won't do that. Sorry, that was a bad joke. While those are getting collected, though, so, national media loves software startups right now. What's really cool about you guys is you have 4 brick and mortar businesses, or 3 brick and mortar currently, and 1 soon to be brick and mortar, hopefully. We're all hoping soon, very soon. I want to hear a little bit about place and sort of how you guys have cultivated your community, or are cultivating your community specific to a particular place. And I'm going to start with Sebastian, because I think that yours is really interesting. Every time I come into the social club, I'm amazed, because it is like there's a really strong sense of community there, but your space is embedded in a campus that is, a large portion of it's commuter. Mm-hmm. And college kids are, they're transient. It's not like they're living there and creating a livelihood there. They're there for a couple years and they're moving. So I guess, how are you cultivating a sense of place on the Wayne State campus?
So it starts with people, right? People, planet, and then profit. So the people piece is really important, right? If we don't have people engaged in what we do, we don't have a business. We don't have anybody's hair to cut. So we started to do these things called shop talks. The barbershop has always been a place where the community gathers. It's a community hub, right? You go there, you exchange information, you tell stories, and we decided to take that and put it into this type of context, right, this panel discussion, because we were attracting some really interesting people, whether it's a student or whether it's, a Grammy Award-winning artist or an NFL running back, right? And we have access to these people now. So when you're in the barbershop, it's a very level playing field. If you come in and there's a wait and you're Reggie Bush, you have to wait. If you come in and you're Garrett, you have to wait. So it doesn't matter who you are or what you do, or how influential you are in the community. Everybody's equal in the barbershop. And I think that creates an interesting dynamic, because it gives that individual access to someone they may not normally have access to, because that person also has to get a haircut. Mm-hmm. It's a very vulnerable position to be in. It's a very human position to be in. So everybody understands they're alike in that state of being groomed. So the shop talk concept came out of, like I said, creating this panel discussion around what normally happens in the barbershop. So we have different individuals, local and global innovators, sit in the barber chair 2 at a time and tell their story while getting a haircut. And they're telling that story in front of a crowd that looks just like this, except we'd be up here getting a haircut. And what that does is it kind of breaks those barriers. We might have, a black guy and a white woman sitting next to each other telling their stories, and by the end of that time, you'll see how similar those stories are. They'll see how similar those stories are. And that might not normally happen in any other setting other than a barbershop, So that's the people piece, making sure that we're creating culture, right? We're bringing these different types of cultures together, and then in a very non-invasive way, having them connect with each other and eventually collaborate with each other. There have been businesses that have been started from these types of conversations and these types of barriers being broken. People are discovering themselves and discovering different communities from being in a barbershop, and that's what the barbershop is about, breaking those barriers. That's what our barbershop is about, which is why it's called the social club. It's about social interaction and social responsibility, and that's the second piece, the planet. So all the hair that we cut, white hair, black hair, Asian hair, gay hair, straight hair, all hair. So that hair is then taken to a compost pile. That compost pile is used to plant trees. Hair is made up of 15% nitrogen, and that nitrogen is used in compost, and that compost is used to grow trees. So no matter who you are, you see that you can have an impact on the community by doing something as simple as getting a haircut. 15% of that nitrogen content helps to plant up to 12 trees for us, right? So for every 12 pounds of hair, 10 trees. So for every 12 pounds of hair that we collect every month, we're planting 10 trees. And when we can show people that you have the same impact as this person, has the same impact as that person, they start to see that they work together. And then we try to plant the hair in neighborhoods that maybe you wouldn't normally go to, right? So that's another collaborative piece. We have to work with organizations that do that. We're not a composting organization. We're not an environmental organization. We're an organization that cuts hair really, really well so that we can cut as many heads as possible to collect as much hair as possible. And that's what we do, right? Cut hair. How we do it is in this very inclusive environment, and why we do it is to impact the environment. What was the question?
No, you went well beyond the questions. Perfect. The Social Club, Wayne State Campus, Anthony Wayne Drive. Get your haircut. Save the planet.
Save some trees.
Yeah.
I can add to that from the perspective of the collective, if I could. There are 3 ideas that I think are central to our mission. 1, I mentioned being a hub for arts and culture in the villages. 2, create opportunity for artists and arts entrepreneurs. And 3, embrace public art as a tool for community development. So when I think about some of the things that we've done to manifest that, we've adopted Owen Park, which sits right across the street from us on Jefferson and butts up against the Detroit River. The park was, offline with Detroit Parks and Rec. We came in, hosted a community cleanup to involve residents in the villages. We regularly cut the grass. We installed new signage. We carved out a nature trail that exposed previously hidden kayak slips. We partnered with Sit On It Detroit and wrote some grants so they could put in a few benches out there for the fishermen and the lovebirds who like to go out to the little cove that's at the end of the nature trail. And then we also have another, and then we write grants to provide space for artists to put work in the park. So we have the Kimberly Gallery, which is dedicated to all Native American art and culture in Owen Park. And then we also had Navek Monet do some pieces for us recently as well. If you're driving up and down Jefferson, you may have seen them. Those were for DDF. And then we have another gallery at Gratiot and St. Aubin, where, again, this is empty field next to a vacant building, a bus stop. A few homeless people sleep in the alley there, but you may have noticed there on Gratiot at St. Aubin, there's a picture of Joe Louis and Detroit's in the background, and it's got a phone number. We commissioned that piece with local artist Syntex to do that. So that's how we see our mission. Create opportunity for those artists. He got paid to do that wall. We worked with the business there who had a problem with taggers, putting graffiti on that wall. Since, Joe Louis has been up there with his fist up, we've been able to keep the taggers away. So we're excited about that. But that's what we feel, is an integral part of our mission. It's very much an outward mission to collaborate with the community, to use art and the artists in our space, to affect, not only, Detroit, but, the artists tell me all the time, they do their work for the world, not just for Detroit. So, that's what we're in it for.
I want to jump into your guys' questions. They're actually really, really good. Thank you for submitting them. So for these, I might suggest maybe someone answer them, but really whoever thinks they have a good thing to add, please do. I'm gonna start with this one because it's been all over my Facebook wall and probably a lot of your Facebook walls for the last couple months, and I think it's another question about place, question about belonging, and I think it's the question that a lot of people wouldn't ask in public, but they'll ask on Facebook. Are all of you guys from Detroit?
I am born and bred in Detroit.
Born and bred.
I have lived other places, but this is it. This is home.
I was born in Flint, Michigan, a place that is very bad. I was raised in Flint, Detroit, and Kalamazoo. So when I was in Detroit, I was on Joy in Granville. Then moved to Kalamazoo for middle school and high school. So I'm from Michigan, Flint.
All right.
Born.
Got it.
Yeah.
Ebony, what about you?
I was actually born in Virginia on an Army base, but I've been raised in Detroit, lived in the North End, and my family's from Highland Park, so I'm Detroit.
So my friends tease me all the time because I was born in Botsford Hospital, which is in Farmington Hills. And they say that like revokes my Detroit card. And that's like really whack. Yeah. No, but I'm from Detroit, born and raised, yeah.
So I think that, some of you are actually not from Detroit, technically, but, grew up, spent a lot of time here. So the question is most, with a caret, all question mark, of you are from Detroit originally, are newly arriving entrepreneurs welcome in Detroit? I think this is, answer this however you want. Well, you can read between the lines here with newly arriving entrepreneurs. I might be a newly arriving entrepreneur.
Fair. So I say that when you try on new clothes, at first you look at it, you take a peek, you're like, it doesn't work, you take it off, you try on something different. Regardless if it's Detroit, Royal Oak, Ferndale, you are going to be the new kid on the block, and it is your responsibility to learn your city or learn where you want to be at. From personal experience, I wanted to know my community. I wanted to know the city of Detroit, so I made it my purpose to be in the areas where I wanted to learn about the culture, learn about the business, and all of the entrepreneurial spirits. Came to Open City, learned Tech Town's retail boot camp, went to D-Hive's build program to really, truly understand the beast. And from that, I was able to use those resources and networking to make a statement, and still making a statement in the city of Detroit. So for me, it's your responsibility. You have to take responsibility for your own actions. And if you really want to be part of the city, then you have to be part of the city to really understand it. So
I can, add to that as well. I think that, we can embrace, everything and all that is new without ignoring what's already here and ignoring, the past of Detroit. So that's where I'm at with it. I think that, the more that Detroit can attract new people, new ideas, I think it's great. But don't ignore those people who are already here, who are already doing great things and have been doing wonderful things. So that's the best way that we can bottom line that. The other thing is that, we can't ignore that there are culture vultures out here. I mean, there are, ideas that are genuinely and uniquely Detroit, and people who have made them and created them. But because they don't have, the wherewithal, the skill set, or whatever it may be to take those ideas full scale and have them impact the marketplace where it becomes a tool where they can create earning power, It doesn't mean that, well, I guess it does mean that people can come and steal their ideas and make them scalable, and earn a living from them. But that thing happens. It's very real on the ground, and it can't go ignored. So, that's the only context in which, I'd really like to comment on that. I think, again, the more diverse Detroit can become, the better. But don't ignore the people who are already here.
Yes, new entrepreneurs from other places are welcome, but spirit is really important. And so if someone comes in with an air of arrogance, or I know it all, or I know more than you do, and I'm going to save you, then people are going to resent that. I mean, it's, it diminishes, and it diminishes what Detroiters are, what we have to offer, how smart we are, how resilient we are, all of that, how strong we are. No one wants to be diminished. So it's really important, if someone's coming in, that they recognize that and behave accordingly.
There's not much left to say.
You'll find something, Sebastian.
I think they got it. I just think that business is about solving problems, and there are a lot of problems that exist. And if people have ideas to solve those problems, and I think they're welcome. If you're brave enough to jump in the business of entrepreneurship to solve a problem, do that. Don't steal anything. Work with people that are here that understand what's going on, and that's it.
So collaborate, maybe.
For sure.
Yeah. I'm gonna ask a question that sort of is asked in a bunch of different ways through this, and that's your biggest obstacle or struggle, and how did you overcome it? I actually don't want to hear about a struggle that you've overcome. I want to hear about a struggle that you are overcoming or working to overcome now.
I can start with that.
Whoever's got a struggle.
Yeah.
We're
our big deal
safe space.
is capital. I mean, obviously for any business, any startup, you want to be able to work with money so you can do the things that you want to do. For our pop-up restaurant, some of the things that we need to do with that building space in order to get it positioned so that the restaurant can be open full time is you have to have 2 bathrooms on the first floor. There's some things we have to do with the kitchen to make it commercial. So it's challenging to get up to scale with the capital to do those things. But there are tools out there that have been very, very helpful. We're still in process, which means it's still a challenge for us, but these tools have been helpful. SWAT City at Tech Town has been great in helping us assess the strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats for that business. The MEDC has been very helpful in identifying resources for us. I mentioned the villages. They've come on board and have been very helpful recently, I'd say the last 12 months, in helping us build that vision. But those challenges with getting the capital that you need to take it to the next level, it's like crossing the chasm. It's like we're standing there, we can see what it looks like on the other side. We can even smell what it's like on the other side, but there's some things that you need to put in place in order to get there. So again, it's the outward collaborations that are important for us to be able to make it happen. Without, Tech Town and MEDC and the villages and others, it may not be possible.
Give me another challenge right now that you guys are facing.
For me, is the transition. And my transition is more from the pilot program to now a more permanent space, and kind of dissecting, like you said, the strengths that you have in your business and the weaknesses that you have in your business. I always say this analogy: I'm in the boat, but I still have holes. And really trying to patch those holes before really kind of saying, hey, here's $1,000 for a permanent space because I'm ready to rock and roll, knowing that I have this giant hole that needs to be patched. So my biggest challenge is patience, actually. The patience to work through those challenges and to not let outsiders influence you. Oh, you got this, you're good. Well, no, I'm really not good. I have holes in the boat, and I really need to work on those aggressively. before I can say, here's $1,000 confidently. So that's kind of like my biggest challenge. I'm extremely thankful for the opportunities that are presented to me, like, yes, but realistically, being that of leadership and being of your business, you are your business. If you know you have holes, you need to fix them.
Next.
If you want it, if you got a challenge.
Okay, why not? Yes, I have lots of challenges. But I think one of the biggest challenges for us is location. We're in Northwest Detroit. We're on Livernois. There's not a lot going on over there compared to, say, Midtown. And so one of the biggest challenges is getting people to know that this wonderful space is here for you and come. And another really big challenge is the fact that we don't have the kind of support system there that you have in an area where there's a CDC that's been operating for 20 years. So we have a lot, we have a lot to learn in terms of marketing. How do we get people to know that we're here? I think that's the biggest one right now.
For me, it's literally transitioning from cutting hair, being a barber, to opening up more shops and running an organization that doesn't involve me cutting hair. So right now I'm focused on these three things of creating awareness about the brand, and we've got a lot of attention, in the media, whether it's been, this documentary with CNN or whatever it is. We've got that part figured out. The biggest challenge outside of me leaving the barber chair is identifying, hiring, and developing talent. I feel like we can grow as fast as we can develop talent. We have investors that are interested, but of the 19,000 or so barbers and cosmetologists that are licensed in 4 or 5 different counties in Michigan, it's very difficult to identify those individuals and get them over to the social club. So that's the biggest challenge for us right now, hiring talent.
Cool. I'm just gonna ask one last question because we're out of time, and I'm gonna make it the softball question that's oftentimes difficult to put together an answer to on the spot. But thinking about challenges and sort of the trajectory of your work the last 5-10 years getting these businesses up, give people in the room some of that just high-level advice. What are some of the things that you're living by every day when you get up? Start anywhere.
So I think for me, it's doing less, say no more. Warren Buffett talked about how for every 100 opportunities he's presented, he says yes to only 1, says no to 99. So for me, I have all these ideas and opportunities, and saying no is the best thing that you can learn how to do. And picking 1, 2, or 3 things, 1 is better, but figuring out what you're really good at and doing those things, doing them more often, and getting better at them. Period.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's great advice. This is a hard question.
We can jump over.
Is somebody else ready?
I can go for me. About 3 mantras that I live by is put in the wood to get the heat. And the reason I say that is because there will be days where you're thinking that no one's paying attention and you're doing all of this work and you don't really see the heat. But if you continuously put in the work, the heat will eventually grow. My second mantra is be honest at all times and work hard. And being honest is being honest with yourself and being honest with your business and where you want to be in the world. And then lastly, I think the biggest challenge is just being focused on what you're really, truly good at. I just really piggyback off Bass is really, I'm good at making connections and making peplums. So
do you want to define peplums?
So peplum is a really
I had to learn what this
really
was.
cool women's T-shirt that is forgivable on the areas that women feel are uncomfortable.
I feel like we could do one of those for guys too.
Fair. But honestly, it's focus on what you're really truly gifted at. Be honest and work hard at that, and continue to put in the wood.
Cool.
Okay,
Thanks.
I'm going to go next. So I think that anyone who is thinking about starting a business should be sure that whatever they're going to do, it's something they're really passionate about, because it will be your life. At least that's what I've found. I mean, it's what I think about 24/7. So you gotta love it. Otherwise, you're gonna hate it. That's my advice.
Yeah, I would concur with that. You know, be true to you, and you know, do what you love. The other thing that I would say is be solid. You know, in your concept. You know, your purpose behind it, your mission. Don't be one of those about to brothers. I'm about to do this. I'm about to do that. You know, I'm about to. You know, don't be about to, brother. You know, keep it close to the vest. Too small to be seen, till you're too big to be broken.
Oh. So I can't speak for everyone in this room, but as someone who's, I think we're all on that journey of figuring out what we want to be doing. Even if we already figured it out, we're trying to figure out how we want to do it better. It's been really helpful for me to listen to you guys tonight. A lot of wisdom, a lot of really useful wisdom. So thank you guys for sharing that wisdom with us, your time tonight. These guys are going to be around, I think, for a little bit if you want to come get some more. Thank you guys for coming in to the launch of Open City. Jessica's going to take the mic.
Yeah, thanks so much to Garret and all the panelists and Cliff Bells. One more round of applause, please. Awesome first Open City.